Aloha and mahalo. And thanks for watching. My name is Chris Stewart, and we're going to be going over the OKO punch counter number 1. First, I wanted to talk about the method of the attack, the impetus for us needing to defend ourselves. So, as described in the manual, it is an opponent who's left foot leading and stepping in with a right punch, whether that be a thrust punch, a regular karate punch, or maybe he's going to come in with a little bit of a hook. Either way, the method of the punch is not so much of an issue as is what foot is leading. This is more of a boxer's position with opposite foot leading, rather than a karate person is going to step back and step through and punch. So that is the method of the attack. Aloha and mahalo as we talk about the footwork in punch counter number 1. Here we have our handy dandy triangle shape in describing where we are going to step to get off the line of the attack. The attack is from our 12 o'clock heading towards our 6 o'clock behind us if we don't get out of the way. So what we're going to do, whether we step forward or step backwards with our first motion, we need to get off of the line. If we are stepping behind us, we're going to be stepping to one of the corners. If we're stepping forward, we're going to go to one of the opposite corners. As described in the manuals, in this particular case, we're going to be going forward with our left foot stepping towards 11:30 on a clock. Let me put this down. Here's the stick we have here. It describes the line of the attack from 12 to 6. I need to get off of the line of the attack with the majority of my body. So what I'm going to do with my left foot, I'm going to step to the corner of the forward triangle, getting the majority of my body off of this line of the attack so that I can respond. Once again, I'm starting in pre-position 1, my left foot slightly forward, and step to the corner of the triangle. If I were to step with my right foot to the other side of the triangle, it would be over here. Notice the only thing that's left on this line of the attack is a little bit of my rear foot. So once again, OKO punch counter number 1, I'm going to step with my left foot to the corner of the triangle and then respond. Next, after we initially respond with the brush block, the hammer to the arm and the hammer to the neck, I'm going to circle up and behind for the strangulation. My right foot now is going to step. And it's not going to step straight on this line. What we are going to do, in fact, is we are going to move the line with us. I want to step in and behind my opponent to effect the takedown. So we take our line now from 12 o'clock, and now I'm going to point it towards 1:30. I've stepped here. To get behind my opponent's leg, I'm going to step with my foot up and behind his leg on line 3 towards 1:30, which will allow me then to rotate off of my front foot for the takedown, using what we call the pizza slice. Here's a crude diagram, but here we have a pizza slice. Here's the crust, and here's the pizza. What we're going to do is go along the perimeter of the pizza while our front foot is nailed to the floor to effect the takedown of our opponent here in punch counter number 1. So in other words, we start at the beginning. We're going to start on line 1, 12 to 6. I'm going to step to my corner of the triangle. I'm going to deviate my angle and step behind his leg towards 1:30. Now, in order to effect the takedown, I am going to use the perimeter of the slice of pizza and to take him down, allowing my right knee to pin him to the ground. Once again, now without the stick, I step to 11:30, step in and behind with stomping the hip, and pizza box to effect the takedown. Now let's focus this on the upper half motion. Aloha and mahalo as we start to put together OKO punch counter number 1 with the lower half and the upper half. So as I begin this, I'm going to be left foot slightly forward. As the punch comes in, get off the line, stepping into triangle. I'm going to parry or brush block, starting at my center line to my edge. I'm not going to go beyond my body. I don't need to. I need to move it from its intended target, deviating the line. What is then going to happen, I'm going to hammer on the inside of the radial nerve, whether it's the radial nerve head towards the bicep or it's towards the forearm, either way. At that same time, I'm going to shift weight, kick. As I land, I'm going to stomp behind the leg and hammer at either the carotid artery or the jugular. Then now I want to take him down. I'm going to sweep around with my hand, contouring around his neck, to using a ridge hand to his left side carotid artery. I'm going to reach around and grab my other hand to create 2 anchors. And I'm going to drop my elbows to bring him in towards me to effect this takedown. Now I'm going to be hip to hip. There's going to be no gap between my opponent and I. Now I'm going to pizza box with my left foot as I take him down. As I take him down, remember his arm is just over my shoulder. I'm going to pizza box. As it comes down, I'm going to control release, and I'm going to have his hand like this stick. Here's his fist. I reach around, and I've got him trapped, right? His arm is by my shoulder. As I take him down, I'm going to use the pizza box. As he comes down, notice I'm going to release. I'm going to grab his arm, and as it comes down, I'm going to place it, let me move so you guys can see, on my forward leg. I'm going to prevent both his shoulders from dropping towards the bottom. We call this a hangman shoulder break. We're going to pop the shoulder out of socket. So once again, from here, I've sucked him in, no gap. I'm going to pizza box and bring the arm down, controlling it with my left hand across my leg. My knee is going to drop to pin him to the ground. If his shoulders are not touching the ground, he doesn't have the leverage he needs to try and grapple or to grab my legs. Then we will proceed in the normal Kaji Kempo fashion of ground and pound. Right? So for instance, with the stick, the punch comes in, I'm going to step forward and parry or brush block. Hammer the arm. Kick, step behind, hammer the side of the neck. Hook around. His arm is here. I'm going to grab my other hand and to suck him in. As I do the pizza box and start to bring him down using my hip as the fulcrum, I'm going to control release his arm across my thigh to control him. Then ground and pound. So okay, quick recap of OKO punch counter number 1. So what concepts and principles are we learning? Number 1, pre-position. My left foot is going to be slightly forward. I'm not going to stand at an intention stance, but I'm also not going to be sitting in a fighting stance either. Number 2, something called ricochet. So as I brush block and then hammer that radial nerve, I'm going to bounce off to the side of the neck. That's called ricochet. I'm going to bounce from one to the other. I'm not going to leave it there. I want to do nerve damage and then to attack his strangulation, the blood flow to his brain. It comes to our next point, is strangulation versus choking. Choking is preventing of the windpipe or the esophagus from bringing air into the lungs, such as a two-handed choke from the front is most often going to affect your breathing, choking rather than strangulation in this case is affecting of the carotid or the jugular veins in either side of the neck. In this case, we're going to strike your opponent's right side of the neck, the carotid artery. And then you're going to flip over and then to, using the ridge hand, to begin to strangulate or prevent blood flow from the carotid artery to the brain. Using the ridge hand, and as you cinch with your hands together and dropping your elbows, creating a strangulation before you take him down to the ground. Also in OKO punch counter number 1, we have attacking of the radial nerve. So remember, our opponent is punching with our right arm. What is he presenting for us? We have two sets of main nerves on the right arm. The top one, which follows the radial bone, is called the radial nerve. There's two radial heads, or what they're called, right here at the top of the forearm and the beginning of the bicep. We're going to strike either of those depending on what we want to do with our opponent. If we strike at the top of the forearm, we're going to get a manipulation of our opponent's height and a little bit of their depth. If I strike the bicep, it's mainly going to shock them and to stutter them. That is going to allow you to ricochet to then striking the carotid artery on the neck, which once again is going to shudder and to shock our opponent for a moment, giving us time. Once in, that's attacking the radial nerve. Now we also have the ulnar nerve, which follows the ulnar bone in our arms. It's not, in my experience, as delicate or as sensitive as the radial nerve. The ulnar nerve generally requires manipulation to affect it, rather than the radial nerve works quite well with either pressure points or with striking. And the last concept that we learned in OKO punch counter number 1 is what we call no gap. In other words, after I kick and I step behind him, as I bring him in, I'm going to create zero gap between his hip, the side of his body, his shoulder, and me. I want zero gap for him to be able to maneuver out of this, what we call sleeper, to the ground. With a gap, it's going to be hard for me to use pizza box and then to rotate to take him down. If I make sure that there is no gap, it's quite easy. Once again, thank you, mahalo, and aloha, and we will catch you as we look at OKO punch counter number 2.